What's up, everybody? It is Izzy, back again with another Q&A. Let's get into the first question of the day. Is the U.S. still the best place to build wealth? When was the U.S. ever the best place to build wealth? The most important factor for building wealth is going to be compounding. And in the U.S., if you're a top 1% earner, you're going to be taxed at an effective rate somewhere between 40 to 70%, depending on like if you live in Florida or if you live in California. So we have to differentiate between the U.S. consumer market and living here as a U.S. citizen. The U.S. consumer market is still perhaps the most lucrative market in the entire world, but you don't have to live here to do business in that market. And there are many countries that have either a flat tax rate, like a flat 15% tax rate, for example, or have territorial taxation systems, which mean they only tax you on income that you make on their soil. So, for example, it's very feasible and possible to have a completely online-based business or even a telecommuting job where you live in another country and you are no longer a U.S. citizen and you don't pay U.S. taxes and you don't pay any taxes there either. And that's going to greatly enhance wealth building. Is there any benefit to starting the bench press cadence at the bottom for barbell or dumbbell or chest press machines? So you mean pausing it at the bottom, right? Like just pause it at the bottom and then you don't rest at the top while your arms are locked out? The major benefit to that would be you're emphasizing the stretch position. And if you're using an implement that does let you stretch your chest, it's probably going to increase the SFR, as we know that, exposing a muscle to tension when it's fully lengthened and even stretching it under load is in and of itself hypertrophic. And as far as not resting at the top to take a couple breaths, that's going to allow for better metabolite accumulation. You may get less reps doing it that way. So that's not necessarily a negative though in exchange, because you get, again, more metabolite accumulation, which cocould lead to better hypertrophy results. So paused bench presses of all sorts are definitely a legitimate option that you can try. I'm not sure how else to interpret this question, though. What is your IQ? Do you consider yourself an intelligent person? I just think caring about your IQ is just kind of cringy. Because if you're intelligent, show me the money. Where's the results? Where are the multi-millions? Why don't you work for a tech company and make 400, 500, 600K a year as a programmer? Why aren't you contributing major important discoveries in science or solving proofs that no one ever has in math? Why aren't you debating long-held philosophical beliefs and showing that the logic is faulty? Why aren't you putting forth new ideas that no one's ever heard? If you're so intelligent, where's the results? Show me the money. Show me your PhDs. Show me how many different languages you speak. Show me your millions. And, it's like this to me. Imagine if we as lifters all had a score above our head that showed our genetic potential. And people who didn't even lift just went around being like, you have a genetic potential of 100? I have a genetic potential of 180. I don't even train, but if I did, I'd be way better than you. That's IQ to me. Do stronger legs mean a stronger leg drive and thus a higher bench press? No, I think actually bigger legs and stronger legs is probably a net negative for a bench specialist. Look at the people who do the Paralympics. The added body weight of your legs is going to push you up several weight classes. So, here's the thing. Leg drive isn't actually moving the bar. It's extending the kinetic chain all the way down to your feet, instead of having the kinetic chain just be your traps interacting with the bench and then your arms moving up and down. It allows you to move the entire kinetic chain along all the way down to your feet and to the ground. And then your legs can kind of reinforce your posture throughout hard reps, as well as add a small spring coil-like effect out of the bottom. But your legs aren't actually lifting the weight. They're just giving you better stability. How would you set up a 4-day split with squat and hinge that has minimal fatigue overlap? I swear to God, I answered this 2 days ago when talking about what day to put your deadlifts on. But you're just going to, on your 2 leg days, one is going to be hinge focus and the other is going to be squat focus. So for example, on your hinge day, let's say day A, you can do RDL, leg press, and leg extension. 2 quad exercises that don't require a fresh lower back, that don't have any axial loading because your back is already going to be fried from doing RDLs. Leg day B, you can go in and do leg curls first, no axial loading there. B, do your squat variation. And then C, you can do some sort of unilateral work like a Bulgarian split squat or a lunge, and that way get in some additional glute work since you only did leg curls that day, without it also needing a very fresh lower back since you're doing it unilaterally. It reduces the load. Very quick, easy setup. Again, leg day A with a hinge, leg day B with a squat variation as the focus. Is doing an iso hold in the lengthened position after your last rep of your last set on an exercise a good way to apply loaded stretch? So I'm sure this is what you mean anyway, but just the way you worded it, I wouldn't do an iso hold. I would literally allow the weight to start stretching you. So I'll show you here. This is my last set of calf raises. I just failed that last rep, and now I'm immediately going into my weighted stretching DC style stretch. Look at how far the weight is away from the pins here. And then I don't have that much left to say, even though this video goes on for like another 30 seconds. So what I want you to just notice is that by the time this video ends, or even as I'm talking right now, notice that the weight stack is getting closer and closer to racking, to touching again. So I'm not just chilling there, holding it in the same spot. I am breathing in and then relaxing into the stretch deeper and deeper. Breathing in, relaxing into the stretch deeper and deeper. If it's not hard and painful, it doesn't do anything. So you got to relax into that stretch and really, really stretch. Can you elaborate on there are no bad exercises, you're just logic, and is it true? Well, first of all, I've never said this. I don't know who says this, so how do I know what their logic is? But here's the thing. For an exercise to actually be bad, it would have to cause negative results, meaning it would have to make you shrink, hypertrophy-wise, make you weaker, or get you injured. There aren't really exercises that do that. Like, they're very, very rare exercises that will actually like hurt you and give you negative results. However, imagine, for example, that I put two treasure chests in front of you. One treasure chest has $10. The other treasure chest has $1 million. And I tell you, I say, hey, this treasure chest has $10. Which treasure chest do you want? And you pick the treasure chest with $10. Well, you still got $10, but you could have had $1 million. And that's like exercise selection sometimes. What are the most important micronutrients? How do I calculate my needs? So you can go on a website called Chronometer. I'll put a link. It's going to show you all the government recommended minimums for every important micronutrient. You can log your food on Chronometer and it will show you which micronutrients you are deficient in. Now, many of the government minimums are so you don't get crazy diseases, like the vitamin C minimum is so that you don't get scurvy. It's very reasonable to assume that we need anywhere from like double to 10 times the government recommended minimums for many micronutrients. However, no one knows the optimal micronutrient levels for lifters because we have more important things to spend research money on, like solving cancer. Opinion on lightweight pump finishers, for example, 100 rep curls. So we have direct research on the minimum percentage of your 1RM that you need to see for roughly equal hypertrophy outcomes, and that percentage is about 30% of 1RM. So if you're doing rep sets that are over 30 reps, it's very likely that you're using a weight that is too light for optimal hypertrophy results. Yeah, you're gonna get a sick pump with a 100 rep set, no doubt. But if you're looking to do some sort of metabolite training, if you're looking to do higher rep training, glycotic systems-based training, you're going to get more out of intensity techniques, in my opinion. So things like drop sets, supersets, rest pause, and stuff of that nature, rather than using absurdly light weights for like a 100 rep curl. How is peaking done in bodybuilding? I'm talking about manipulating water intake, sodium, and carbs. Dude, this is way too complicated to be answering in a Q&A format. Imagine somebody asking me, like, how do you water cut for an MMA fight? Well, nobody does it exactly the same way, and there's like many steps. Like, this is an entire article. Very broadly speaking, you are going to create super compensation effects. Okay, so for example, you're going to, for the week before the contest, you're going to do carb depletion training and have no carbs, so that when you reintroduce carbs, you get a temporary super compensation where you can hold more carbs than normal. For water, you're going to overconsume water for a certain period of time to increase the rate at which you're expelling water via urination. And then close to the contest time, you're going to still be expelling water at an increased rate, but you're not going to bring the amount of water that you've been having back in, so you're drier than usual. For more info, check out the book, How to Be Your Own Bodybuilding Coach. Can you post more videos of you doing DC stretches? Honestly, no. It's just like so boring. Nobody wants to see me just like holding a stretch, and that's literally all that it is. On my last set of, my last rep of my last set for a given muscle group, I'll just simply hold things in the lengthened position. So what I'm doing here is that I'm lifting up my torso with my arms so that I'm in more of a hip extension position and just letting the weight pull down and stretch my hamstrings. If I was doing my RDL day, then what I would do is I would let the weight rock on the ground. I'll hold on to the handles with straps, and then I will forcibly try to fight my legs straight. So, I mean, just think about it. Any exercise that I do, I basically just hold the last rep. On flies, I just hold it in a fly to stretch my pecs, right? For triceps, you can do an overhead stretch. So yeah, I mean, I'm not going to post stretching videos when I already have 20 plus lifting videos to get through. Any tips for grips slipping on reverse curls? So what I would do is just use straps, to be honest. It's not a grip exercise. If your exercise is being limited by your hands, just use straps. The other thing that you can do is you can do as many reps as you can with a false grip, meaning that your thumb isn't around. And then as soon as your grip starts failing, you can wrap your thumb around. And that's usually enough to get you a few more reps. But if it's still slipping while you have your thumb wrapped around the thing, I would just use straps. Again, are you doing this to, what muscles are you trying to train? Are you trying to train the muscles of the grip, or are you trying to train the big meaty ass muscle in your forearm, like the brachioradialis? Just decide, because straps are not a sin. I feel economically and financially stupid. How do I remediate this and earn wealth? By the way, I mean this in the entrepreneurial sense. So first of all, man, you're like 20 and still in college. What are you even talking about? Second, I really think that the whole idea that if most people want to earn wealth, they need to be an entrepreneur is a huge, terrible myth that sets a lot of people up for failure. Because personally, I believe that entrepreneurs are born, not made. You need to have a certain kind of personality that likes risk, that doesn't want to listen to anybody else, that's okay with taking their job with them 24/7, that likes the responsibility of having to put out every single fire that comes up, because that's what being an entrepreneur is. All of my wealthiest friends have corporate jobs where they climb the ladder and they earn $400,000 plus a year. They get shares in the company stock. They have the best insurance that money can buy. And all they have to do to buy a house is just be like, look, I'm employed by Facebook. Look, I'm employed by Google. Fucking lenders love it. And the high income plus buying real estate pretty much ensures that they build wealth. All their extra money, they can just stock it away in IRAs. They can stock it away in the stock market and like in an index fund, and just let time do its thing. Okay, all of my friends that are entrepreneurs, some of them are super wealthy, but the vast majority of them actually work like 40, 60, 80 hours a week, making sure that their businesses are still going, or they did at least some point work 60, 80 hours a week to get their businesses off the ground. It's not the best path for many. Like I said, man, I really think that entrepreneurs are born. When I was literally like 8 years old, and this is just the first story like this that I remember. According to my mom, I did stuff like this even before that. So on Christmas, it was very typical for my family to get like the newest gaming system, or at least get new games for the gaming system that we did have. Now, I didn't really give a shit about stuff like that, but my brothers both loved games, and I figured that out very quickly. The other thing is that they were both very young. I mean, they're each younger than me by about 3 years total. So one of them, when I was 8, one of them's like 7, the other one's like 6, 5, somewhere in that range. They're very impatient. So I would sell them my video games in exchange for their Christmas money. And usually I would charge them more than the game actually cost. And we would justify this based on the fact that, hey, these stores aren't open on Christmas. They're not going to be open again until after New Year's. So if you want to play the newest, I don't know, Crash Bandicoot game, you have to buy it from me at a premium. Now, my mom put a stop to that because she was concerned that it was like scammy and potentially unethical, and the behavior kind of worried her. And I guarantee you that many people that just heard that story felt the same way. And guess what? That's why none of you are fucking entrepreneurs, and I am. I was literally made like this. I was made like this. In elementary school, I had a $50 box set of Pokemon cards, and within a year, I turned that into a collection worth over $5,000. How did I do that? I memorized every single kid in school's favorite Pokemons, and I would trade them, those Pokemons, for their highest value card, of which I also memorized the value, the monetary value, of every single Pokemon card that was available at the time. I can keep going with stories like this. And what's my point? Is it to brag about how good I am at scamming people, or that like I'm super cool because I can turn a card collection into something that's worth more than 10 to 100 times more than what I had initially? That's not the point at all. The point at all is that if you don't see value everywhere, if you don't see exchanges as opportunities to extract value, you probably just don't have the entrepreneurial mindset. If there's never been hustler in you, you're not going to discover the hustler in you, okay? It's something that would have been evident at a very young age. Everybody would have seen it. And yes, sure, there is some room for gray hair. There's people that can be both an employee and an entrepreneur. But really, again, entrepreneurs are mostly born. Now, here's the good news. Being an entrepreneur is not the best way to become a millionaire. It's the best way to become like worth 100 million or a billion, but that's not what most people are trying to do. If you just play the cards you've been dealt, and as I recall, you're an engineering student, your goal should be to get a 4.0 and to earn the respect and adulation of your professors so that your professors write you amazing recommendations to get you a key internship at a company that's going to open up a pathway for you to be hired right when you graduate. You should be working to secure an internship that basically guarantees you a six-figure job right out of school. That is all you need to focus on. That's all that most people need to focus on for the best and most realistic path to wealth. Secure a high income. All that has to happen once you have a high income is that time is just going to do the rest. Okay? If you can even save 10% of your income, which is easy as fuck to do. It's so easy to do when you have a 6+ figure income. I mean, there's been periods in my life where I've saved 40% of my income. But let's just work with like 10%, man. Now let's say you make other good financial decisions in life. Like instead of just marrying the hottest woman that you can find, you marry one that has similar financial values, similar relationship values, that is a similar level of intellect and makes a similar amount of money to you, which is very realistic because again, all of those things are similar. So you're in each other's league. That potentially doubles your earning power. And so you're looking at a situation where like if you're both making six figures, and that's on the low end for an engineering student who's really trying their hardest, you could easily get that to like 300, 400K. Okay. You do that and you set aside 10% a year and you are, by the time you're 50, you're going to have a completely paid off house, which is going to be your number one biggest expense, completely gone, completely done. And you're going to have upwards of $3 million in the bank account. That's assuming a $200,000 collective income between you and your partner and saving just 10% of it. If your companies that you both work for have a 401k matching program, which most good companies do these days, then that's more like $6 million in the bank. If you want to do that by your 40s instead of your 50s, then you're going to have to work harder to up that income and maybe up the percentage that you save. But either way, like you're on the clear path, like the straight and narrow to wealth. All you have to do is just stick to the game plan, execute, and you're pretty much going to get there so long as there isn't some sort of very tragic accident or illness or something that comes along your way. And this is the best path to wealth for most people. Get a high income job, buy a house, put money in the stock market, work for 30 to 40 years, done. What are your hobbies besides lifting and sports? So there are many, many things that I'm very interested in and that I like, but I don't do any of them right now because 100% of my attention and focus basically goes into lifting and then keeping my financial world in order. And that's 100% of my focus. However, once I have accomplished the lifting goals that I have set out for myself, I will definitely do other things. And this is why it's like so hard for some people to believe that I just will just give up lifting. When, as for me, it's not hard to believe at all because there's so many other things I like. For example, one day I will 100% for sure get into the following things. Competitive public speaking, that's something that I would like to try and will try 100%. I would like to breed Labradors at least once, Kona and Mellow in particular, but if it's something that interests me beyond that, I'll keep doing it. And then 3, something that I've done in the past and would like to do again in the future is daily fantasy sports and sports betting. Tons of fun for me. If I am training to failure, is it sufficient to drop from 3 sets to failure to 1 set to failure in order to drop fatigue, similar to what I would do in a deload? This is going to be a little bit of a longer answer. So there are 2 points to a deload, not just one. You need to drop fatigue in a deload. That is the most important part of it. But number 2 is that you want to maintain as many of your underlying fitness adaptations as possible while you are deloading. So the advantage of a traditional deload where you cut both intensity and load is that 1, you're going to drop fatigue much more quickly. And 2, there are certain types of fatigue that can't really be dropped unless you also lower intensity. For example, let's say you're having elbow problems and you're going to go from 3 sets of skull crushers to just 1 set of skull crusher. Well, guess what? And if you're gonna do those skull crushers heavy, like in the 5 to 10 rep range, even though you're cutting it down to one set, that may still not be enough for your elbow to actually lose that fatigue and stop hurting. So if you're going to do a D-volume instead of a traditional deload, you may still actually need to drop the intensity in terms of the percentage of 1 rep max that you're using. Like, for example, you might need to do a week or a half week or a microcycle where you only do the 20 to 30 rep range to give your joints a break. The other thing is that because you're not dropping the relative intensity, which is the proximity to failure, you're not going to get rid of as much fatigue. And so it's going to take longer to drop the fatigue. So I tend to do D volumes in 2 phases. Phase number 1 will be a week or a microcycle of very minimal volumes, but also lower absolute intensities. So 20 to 30 rep range, 15 to 30 rep range only. The next week or the next microcycle will be back to the usual intensities, but volumes will stay minimal. So at this point, it's taking twice as long as a normal deload to get rid of the same amount of fatigue. But there is one advantage. With the D volume, you're not going to detrain as much because you're still training hard the whole time. So even though it may take you longer to accomplish getting rid of the fatigue, you're also going to keep more underlying fitness. And I find that for some people, that ends up being a net positive. And for other people, it's roughly neutral. And for other people who actually get stronger after a 1 week deload, it's a net negative. I recommend trying both approaches to see what works best for you. For me, I would almost rather not go to the gym than go to the gym and do like a half-hearted workout where I just go through the motions with 50% of my usual weights. I just hate doing that so much that I often just don't do it. And I'll just prefer not to train at all. And that leads to, in my experience, more detraining than using a D-volume approach. And obviously I should just make myself do what is optimal. But I guess what? I found out with D-volumes, I can dump fatigue and not detrain. So for me, D-volumes have become my go-to method for dropping fatigue. All right, everybody, that's the end of the video. So you know the drill. If you liked the video, please like the video. Any questions or comments you have, leave them below. I answer them all. Subscribe if you haven't already. Enjoy a weird dog photo as usual, and have a good day, my friends.